I've lost weight enough times in my life to know that losing weight is not the part that I do not understand. When I set my mind, I can follow a very strict plan. I can keep up with the food requirements. I can keep up with the routines. I can do all the things that are necessary and keep the focus well past the initial excitement. What I have not learned yet is how to make the results of all of that hard work survive a life that refuses to stay calm. Eventually, something stressful happens because something stressful always happens. My attention is taken somewhere else, my routines become harder to manage, and the weight returns. Then I blame myself. I feel ashamed and wait until the frustration gets to me and I start dieting again, even stricter than before. Before I ask which next plan I want to try, I want to ask a bigger question. And that is, why am I not actually capable of keeping the weight off? Is the problem that I really lack discipline? Or are the plans that I chose for maintenance something that will not work for me unless they are the primary focus of my life? I may still decide to lose weight again. Before I settle on the next method, I really want to understand what this cycle of gaining and losing is asking of me. And exactly what am I asking weight loss to fix in my life? Most importantly, what have I missed out on as I was focusing on losing weight and becoming smaller? Welcome to Real Women Unscripted. This is not an argument for or against weight loss. A woman may want to have more energy, feel more comfortable, have a different appearance, or have more freedom to pick the outfit that she loves. She may be also responding to years of criticism or seeking the approval that women often get when they become smaller. Most of our reasons are probably mixed. What concerns me is what happens when we skip that examination and go straight into a new weight loss plan. We start with frustration, we push through the process, and any regain is looked as failure or weakness. Shame becomes the motivation for the next attempt. I want to understand why change has not lasted. I want to understand what maintaining it is requiring, and whether the lifestyle needed to maintain the weight off is a life that I actually want to live. Only then I want to decide if weight loss is still something I want to pursue. I have been in various shades and sizes of what people will call chubby for most of my life. I grew up in Italy, and in the Italy I knew, the acceptable range for a woman's body felt very narrow. Once a woman moved much beyond 110 or 120 pounds, people could be quick to describe her as fat, regardless of her height or build. When I left in 2000, plus-size clothing was not something I saw represented already available in the stores around me. Things may be very different now, but that was the environment in which many of my earliest beliefs were formed around women's bodies. There were also parts of daily life that made staying smaller feel more natural. I walked more, meals were different, and eating often felt slower. After moving to the United States, my routine involved more driving, busier schedules, different portions, and more food decisions throughout the day. I'm not judging either country. I love them both dearly. I'm just describing what happened during that transition. The stressors changed, my lifestyle changed, my relationship with food changed, and so did my body right along with it. And yet, instead of thinking about what was happening and how things have changed, I blamed myself. It was personal failure. I thought the answer was, well, you just need to be more disciplined. And so what did Katya do? Katya got very disciplined. I have been very successful at following very strict, very structured weight loss plans. Every time I set my mind into succeeding at one, I actually do. I lose a lot of weight. I even did some extreme things that removed the food decision process from the equation entirely. I will not go into details. It was unsupervised, and I do not want you to think that that is something you should try. What matters is what came out of that and what I've learned from that experience. Without all that noise, the constant food decision, thinking about it, figuring out what can and cannot not eat, I felt relieved because food was not another item on my to-do list. But eating is also part of friendship, family, celebration, and just basic connection. People became uncomfortable around me because while I was still present, I was missing out on a big part of the connection, which is eating together. So I have found the ways to remove food noise from my life and make my choices easier around food. But at the same time, I created a life that was not sustainable long term. Later, I followed a different, highly structured plan surrounding my eating. And it worked because I was able to tweak it around when I needed it to connect with people and when I was by myself. So I kept it going for several years and I felt amazing and energized. And then stress came. Maintaining the weight off still required active management, planning, preparation, restriction. But now, with this stress coming into my life, I could no longer make weight management the primary focus on my life. And so the weight came back. For years, I saw that as failure. But I was very aware that my issue was not discipline. After all, I kept the weight off for a few years. What I could not do is make the maintenance of the weight loss my primary and only focus. After all, there's more to my life than just my weight, just like any other human being. That was a very different problem, and it requires a different question. My details are mine, but I know I'm not the only woman that has experienced these type of patterns. Something works perfectly while it has our full attention, and then as soon as it doesn't, we struggle. Many plans work beautifully while they have our full attention. The meals are organized, motivation is high, and the goal influence our every decision. Then life gets a little in the way. More stress, more hectic schedule, perhaps somebody in our family needs us, we're traveling, we're grieving, or we simply become exhausted. The plan may still produce some result, but it no longer fits around the life that we're living in that moment. A plan can be perfect for weight loss, but very poorly designed for maintenance. I often say that I fail at the plan long term. I never stop and consider, was the plan designed to survive stress, relationships, and limited attention? Or did it work only when everything went perfectly well? For me, the hardest part has always been the mental effort. Are the meals ready? Is everything organized? Is everything prepped? If I go to an event where food is involved, can I eat what they have, or do I have to bring my own or skip the meal entirely? Will an unplanned meal become the end of the process and the beginning of a slippery slide? Even when I am succeeding, in the back of my mind, this calculation runs nonstop every waking hour, like an invisible task list that never get checked off. That's why the phrase lifestyle change is very frustrating to me, because a life should allow me to live, not to be constantly managed. I do not expect significant change to require no effort, but I am allowed to ask whether the plan is realistic and whether it can fit a difficult time in my life. Perhaps consistency doesn't mean never being disrupted. It just means that when I do get disrupted, I can go back to it without feeling that I have completely failed. A plan that works when I am focused, motivated, calm, and in control has proven that it works under ideal conditions. However, my life is rarely in ideal conditions. This is where the emotional cycle can become more damaging than the number on the scale. Unhappiness creates urgency, and urgency makes us become strict immediately. That level of strictness makes us feel in control. Because now that we have rules and measurable goal, we feel like we can handle it and we know what we are expected to do. Then something disrupts the plan. It could be a meal, a holiday, a stressful week, or something that is a little more prolonged, but we absolutely have to focus on. So food becomes easier to reach than the support we truly need. Sometimes a disruption is just ordinary. We come home exhausted, we eat a meal that was not planned, and the next day we cast judgment on ourselves because we say that is a permanent and irrevocable character flaw. Instead of asking ourselves, what made that day so difficult? We just decide that we cannot be trusted. So once we believe that we have fallen off, shame creeps in and tells us that we have ruined everything. And since we ruined everything, what's the point of keep trying? Later, when the weight returns, the same sneaky shame tells us that we need to go on a super strict new plan to make up for the damage we have done. Shame creates strictness. Strictness creates an environment or a plan that is unsustainable. And so when then one little disruption comes your way, it produces shame. And here we start all over again. Shame produces strictness. Strictness produces an environment that is unsustainable. A little disruption comes our way, and shame comes right back to start the cycle all over. We rarely question the structure, the role the stresses play in it, and exactly what need is food fulfilling. So we question our character. We just say we don't have enough willpower, when in all reality, we exerted so much willpower already. We say that we just need more control, but the reality is control has already been the dominant part, consuming too much energy, so much so that it is unsustainable long term. I'm not saying structure is bad. Some women prefer clear routines. What I'm asking is that structure serving us and our goals? Or is that structure turning us into our own worst prison guards? Regaining can be disappointing, but it doesn't need to be a verdict on your character. Regaining can hold information such as, is this plan too strict for me to follow on a regular basis? Can I continue this plan even when stressors come into my life? Is the disruption going to set me way back in such a way that I cannot recover from? That information only helps us if we don't call ourselves lazy, weak, or hopeless. Those words do not help us to gain insight of what is really happening. Those words simply shut us down. If I already know how to punish myself, then perhaps the most revealing question is, has punishment ever helped me understand or fix anything? Before I decide whether I want to try it again or not, I really need to understand why I want to lose the weight to begin with. And for me, I've been very blessed and I don't have any health condition that losing weight will improve or eliminate. However, when I lose weight, I do feel more energized and I also have more mental clarity, which are very, very nice perks. But if I'm honest, my true reason is a little more shallow than that. It is fashion. Clothing to be exact. I know next to health needs, it is very trivial, but it is not for me because this is how I express myself through clothing. And when I see an outfit that just speaks to the soul, I want it. And yet that joy and excitement for seeing an outfit that just is so much like me lasts less than half a second. Because then my brain comes in and my brain says, do they even have it in your size? Are you even going to look any good in it? Are you going to have to start putting all kinds of stuff to hide this role? And by the time you're all done, people are going to laugh at you anyway. And I know that may sound a little of an exaggeration, but I do like bold and unique fashion. So yes, I could stand out a little too much, especially given the size. The frustration is not just that I want to look smaller. It is that the person I am inside cannot find clothing to fully express herself on the outside. I want the freedom to see something, love it, buy it, and enjoy it without weight and size constantly be a question mark or a point of discussion. That is an honest reason, and I don't need to make it sound more noble than what it actually is. At the same time, I need to ask myself, is this really what I want? Or is it the result of a script that I learned along the way, seeing women, smaller women, be more readily accepted? Would I still want to change if nobody would notice, if I wouldn't get any compliments, and if nobody would congratulate me? Which parts of being smaller will still matter privately in the life I actually live? The answer may still be yes. But what I don't want is social approval to be the reason why I chase a body that requires me to constantly defend it. A smaller body will change the way I fit and look in clothes. However, a smaller body could never make me feel acceptable, lower the stress, or shield me from criticism. For other women, weight loss may represent confidence, a younger identity, safer dating, or a sense of control. None of those reasons should be looked at as shallow. They reveal how much emotional work a physical change is asked to perform. Before I ask weight loss to fix the problem, I need to understand exactly what job am I giving it. And can that smaller body even do that job? There is another cost to this cycle, and it does not show up on a scale. It is the amount of life we postpone while we're waiting to become the version of ourselves that we're ready to present. For some women, that may mean avoiding photographs. For others, it may be postponing dating, swimming, travel, dancing, or an opportunity because we don't yet have the confidence. But confidence is gained while you're actually taking action. There are also quiet ways in which this could happen. We save the good clothes for our future body. We decline an invitation because we do not know what to wear. Or we sit at a dinner with friends or family, paying close attention to every calorie we consume, and in our mind, make a plan on how we will correct it tomorrow. Even when we're not dieting actively, we still live in relation to the next diet. We're following the plan, breaking the plan, preparing to get into the next plan, or simply feel guilty because we're not in one. The plan remains in the room even when it's technically over. The irony is that many of us believe that with a smaller body, our lives will be fuller. But maintaining that smaller body and the struggle that it requires oftentimes limits our potential to live our lives fully. It occupies attention, it limits spontaneity, and turns ordinary pleasure into a verdict or judgment for or against our worth. I do not want to dismiss this by just simply saying, live your life now. Realistically, there are things that are easier or more enjoyable at a different weight. Pretending otherwise will not be honest. But I also do not want my current life to become collateral damage in pursuit of a future one. In my own case, I have to ask myself, can I still express myself with the body that I have, even if the options are not 100% what I prefer? Can I buy something because I genuinely like it, rather than worrying about whether it hides me well enough? Can I stay in a picture, accept an invitation, without in my head turning it into this judgment against my discipline? For someone else, the question may be completely different. It may be, can I take that trip? Can I stop cutting myself out of family experiences? Can I start that new relationship? It may be simply the refusal to treat today as less real than the future. I can still want to change without treating the woman that I am today as if she's temporary inconvenience. My life is not a waiting room or a before picture on my way to who I want to become. My life is the life that is happening right now. I don't think I need another complicated system. What I think I need is answer some very honest and hard questions before discomfort pushes me into another attempt. The first question is, what am I honestly hoping weight loss will give me? I want the real answer, not the one that sounds most respectable. Is it energy, comfort, clothing, confidence, approval, control, or a sense that I have returned to the woman I used to be? Once I name what I am seeking, I can ask which part genuinely depend on weight loss and which may need attention somewhere else. The second question is, what made my previous approach unsustainable? Saying that I become lazy tells me nothing useful. I want to understand what the method required in preparation, restriction, predictability, social sacrifice, and mental attention. Which requirement became impossible to maintain, and what was happening in my life when I did it? The third question is, what happens when life becomes stressful? Stress is part of life. So any approach I consider has to be examined in the context of difficult weeks, travel, celebration, exhaustion, and times when I have fewer decisions left in me. I want to know whether the method contains a way to return without panic or punishment. The fourth question is, what am I postponing while I wait for my body to change? Am I withholding clothes, photographs, relationship, experiences, or respect for myself? What belongs only to a future version of me? Then there is one final question. After sitting with all of this, do I still want to lose the weight? The answer may be yes. It may be no. It may be yes, but not through the methods I have used before. Or I need to understand what is underneath the cycle before I decide. These questions are not a plan, and they do not promise a solution. They're simply a way to slow down long enough to notice whether the next attempt is coming from reflection or from another wave of shame. When I apply those questions to my own experience, the picture becomes clearer. I do want mental clarity, and I do want more energy. But most of all, I want to be able to express myself more through fashion. The ways in which I lost weight in the past, they were all very effective. But what they were not effective at was keeping the weight off. Those methods were good, but they just didn't fit with my personal lifestyle. The requirements, the focus, the attention that they required was just too high. And so as soon a little bit of stress or something came into my life that took me away from that focus, everything fell apart. That does not tell me that I should never try to lose weight again. But it tells me that if I try an approach that is similar to what I've done in the past, I would most certainly come back right where I am now. I do not need another system to show me that I can suffer, push through, and stay dedicated. I already proved that to myself. I need a system that works with my real life, the stressor, the uncertainty, the ups and downs. I need a system that allows me to go back to it without guilt, shame, or self-doubt. I also need to ask myself, if I decided that food could do a work, the weight loss cannot. If food is the way that I deal with stress and other parts of my life, and I take that away without putting something else that helped me cope, then I didn't address the underlying cause. If strictness gives me a sense of control when life feels chaotic, then chaos may deserve much more attention than actual food. Addressing the cause does not guarantee a specific outcome, and every woman may come up with their own conclusion, but it gives us a chance to make decisions with more honesty and less shame. So, do I know exactly why I keep gaining the weight back? No, I don't. And I want to be honest about that, to you and to myself. But what I do have is a lot of evidence I know that for as long as I can stay focused on weight loss and keeping it off, I can do it. I know that when I'm smaller, I have more energy, more mental clarity, and I can express myself to clothing better. What I also know is that it's unrealistic for my lifestyle to demand weight loss and keeping it off to be the primary focus. That history does not prove that I'm hopeless. That history tells me that strictness can get me through for a while, but strictness does not carry me to the end. It also tells me that stress is not something I can draw my life around. It will come and I don't have control over it. Any lasting and successful approach must fit within the reality of my life. My desire includes energy, mental clarity, and appearance, but also self-expression too. I do not need to hide those reasons to make them respectable. So before I try it again, I want to ask myself some question. I want to understand why I want to lose the weight. What do I think weight loss will actually change or fix for me? Why the previous methods have never worked, and how can I find a method that will fit long term? And after all of that, if I still think I want to lose the weight, I wanted to do it in my own terms. I don't want to do it because I feel pressured by culture saying the smaller women are more acceptable. I don't want to start a weight loss program from a sense of disgust. I do not want to use deprivation as punishment. And I do not want to call the results discipline. I want to explore the desire of losing weight without rejecting it or without immediately feel compelled to obey. I want to notice what is mine, what I may have inherited, and what realistically will never be fixed by me losing weight. So the first step for me is not another plan. First, I need to decide what my life really look like, realistically. What can I influence and what can I not influence? And once I find that, if I still choose to lose the weight, I need to figure out a plan that can work with my true life. I may still want to change my body, but what I don't want anymore is missing out on chapter after chapter of my life while I try to figure out how to change my body and keep it that way. We are allowed to want change, but we should not withhold our lives until that change is already here. My life is happening now, and yours is too. If you feel comfortable sharing, which questions stay with you most? What you hope weight loss will give you? What made the last approach difficult to sustain? What happens when life becomes stressful? What you may be postponing? Or whether you still want the goal after looking underneath it. Please share your own experience rather than offering a judgment about someone else's bodies or choices. This is a conversation about understanding the cycle, not blaming the woman who's living inside it. Still, I interpret that it's sustainable long term. Oh, I keep clipping out. Were performed. No, formed, not performed. Ah, jeez. Okay. Limits our spontaneity. Oh, I can say that word.